Hey guys, it's me. I'm back and I've heard from a lot of you guys going through this quarantine and everything being crazy that sometimes fitness and eating healthy just feels like it can't be a priority on top of all the other stresses and changes that you've got going on in your life. So I thought it'd be helpful to hear some professionals talk about it because it's our job to kind of keep these things on track. At the same time, we're humans and we are just going through this with you. So I want to let you in on our human side of it too, but then also kind of see what shifts do we make so that we can stay on track because we do have those tools and stuff. So I have with me today Bonnie Giller. Welcome, Bonnie.
Oh, thank you so much. Really happy to be here talking with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've actually talked to Bonnie before, and I have so much respect for her and for what she does. She's a registered dietitian and works especially with intuitive eating, which we'll get more into as we're talking. And if you want to know more about her, you can go to BRG. What was it?
brghealth.com.
brghealth.com.
Right.
So just if you want to get connected with her, if she's talking about stuff that you're like, oh, that resonates so well, I'd love to connect. She'll be available for that. So, but I just kind of want to talk to you, Bonnie, about what's been going on with you. How have you been doing through all of
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, this is really, it's been a difficult time. We're a couple months in. I've lost track. Like every day feels like yesterday, the day before, the next. I don't even know. Like March was the longest month, but yet April seems to be going really fast. So
Yeah.
I sometimes I wake up, I don't even know what day it is anymore. So, but I would say that this whole thing, with the pandemic has been rather stressful for me, as I'm sure it's been for everybody, right? Like you said, we're all human.
Mhm.
So it's definitely it's weighed heavily on me. But I have to say that I'm feeling a lot better today. For some reason, I'm feeling a lot more hopeful and more positive, and I do believe in my heart everything is going to be okay, and that there's a reason for all of it, and we don't always really understand what it is, but somewhere there is a reason.
Yeah.
That's kind of, yeah. So, but right now I'm doing okay. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm so I work from home most of the time anyway. I do have some in-person clients too, so I'm missing them a lot. Um,
Right.
but for the most part, because I work from home, a lot of things haven't changed for me. So I think it's in a lot of ways, work-wise, it's very similar. It is weird going to the grocery store and I get frustrated not being able to depend on my foods being there. Uh,
Right, right, right.
I've I kind of know how I like to eat. I know where all the foods are. That makes grocery shopping really simple. I don't have a lot of planning to do
Mm-hmm.
until I get there and realized, oh, there's no almond milk. Um,
Right.
now what do I do? And I one thing isn't a big deal, but when it's several things all at once, you're like, well, now I have no plan for what I'm eating for the week.
Right. It gets
So
a
that,
little overwhelming.
yeah, that's honestly been
Yeah.
hard for me. And then just even just going outside and not seeing people like at the parks and stuff,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, it makes me feel a lot more lonely,
Right.
honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say that I'm lonely necessarily because I have at home my husband and my two daughters. My two sons are married. They live in New Jersey, so I don't get to see them. I haven't seen them. I haven't seen my three grandchildren, so that is lonely. Looking at on that, talking to them on Zoom is not the same as hugging those little kids. So that is definitely missing my sons and my grandkids. But work has definitely been different for me because, like we had been talking, I do have an online practice seeing clients virtually, but I also have an offline practice. And so I always had people coming into my office. I've had assistants with me in the office helping me with billing and whatever the case is, answering phones, and they're no longer here. So it's like me, myself, and I in my office with nobody coming in. And I miss that personalization, that people thing. I'm thankful that we do have virtual, ability to do virtual sessions. I think is really important, especially in the work that I do with nutrition, nutrition is such an important part of managing a lot of conditions that people have, medical conditions that I treat, diabetes, GI, heart, and those people still need to get the care, right?
Oh,
So the fact that I'm available and able to do that, I'm grateful for, without a doubt. But it's definitely a weird setup because number one, I also don't dress up as I normally would when
yep.
I have people coming into the office. I'm usually in, more business like clothing, and I wear heels, and my hair is all done up and my makeup, and it's like I don't, of course I can't go anywhere to get my hair done anymore. So much for that. And you know, it's just, fancy on the top, very casual on the bottom. Nobody sees, you know what I mean? So it's really weird. I even said to my husband yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I think this week I'm going to dress up to go to work like I normally would, because it just feels really just uncomfortable wearing, leggings to work. But, and then on the other side of it, it's like my husband's working from home. So I've been eating 3 meals a day with him now, which is really strange, to be honest with you. Usually it was dinner. We never did breakfast or lunch together.
Uh-huh.
And now he's here all the time. I love him, but it's just sometimes, my daughters are like, when is daddy going back to work? We joke around about it, but,
Well, it
I
changes
think
the dynamic.
what?
It changes the dynamic of just how you flow through your whole day.
There's no question about it. Thankfully, we're all getting along because, with some people who are around their family for 24/7 like this, you can kind of get on each other's nerves.
Hmm.
But we're all in our spaces doing our thing, so we're pretty okay with that. I think for me, like when you reached out to me a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I just don't think I could, do this talk with you, this live. I think the biggest stress for me was worrying about my parents. So my parents are elderly, and I live in
You're in
New
New
York.
York, right?
I'm in New York, and my
Yeah.
parents were, well, they live in New York, but then during the winter months, they're in Florida. And they were intending to come home back to New York early March. No, I'm sorry, early April, for the holidays. But unfortunately, they got stuck in Florida. So it was, there's a lot of worry I have about them. Um, you know, I don't want them going out. They have to self-isolate. How are they going to get their food? I spent yesterday 3 hours on the phone with them trying to show them how to do home delivery with food, going online. And so I duplicated their shopping cart on my computer with it. I mean, this is what you do as a daughter, right? And it's my pleasure, but there's a lot of worry. But thank God they're doing okay. They're listening. They're not venturing out because, of course, we know the elderly are more at risk, and especially if they have underlying health conditions, which they do. So that was, I think, really weighing heavily on my head for the last month or so. But I feel a little bit better about it now. And like I said, they're thankfully doing okay. They'll hopefully continue to do okay. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors right now that we don't typically think about, and that stress that you're talking about, it's very real for so much of us.
Yeah.
And with all of that and that kind of stress and everything, food is already can be a stressful thing for people, which
Yes.
and then you add on like elderly parents like you're talking about, the husband being home. A lot of times I work with women who they eat differently than their husband most of the time. If you're sharing only one meal a day, that's one thing. So then the rest of the day, the wife will eat one way, the husband will eat another way, and there's no problem with it. But now when you're together all the time, if you have different ways of eating, it can, and now there's even more stress around food and eating. And so I didn't want to just come at people with like answers and
Hmm.
just say, oh, well, here's how you got to fix it, because we're not, we need to be healing at this
Yes.
time,
Yes. Yes.
and coming at it from a space of allowing ourselves, I think, to go through what we're going through and feel what we're feeling. And so, like you mentioned that 2 weeks ago, you felt like you just weren't in the headspace to even like have a talk about this.
Mm.
Um, and I that's kind of where I want to meet people at, though, is that like we're not feeling great right now. Life is not normal right now. We don't know what's going on right now.
Right.
at the same time, like you said, you have clients who have health conditions. They need to keep eating certain ways to keep their health. So, I
Mhm.
mean, there's all this craziness about coronavirus, but there's still all these other things that we had to deal with before too. Those didn't just go away.
Right.
So, how how are you coaching your clients with that have to keep eating a certain way?
Right. I think the first thing I want to acknowledge is that turning to food to soothe and to comfort in times of stress, anxiety, the unknown, the uncertainty, it's actually, normal. It's like, it's okay for people to do that if they do have other coping strategies that they're using as well. So I think that's a really important point, right? I never demonize emotional eating ever, because we're emotional human beings. We've been talking about that. We've each had our own emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to consciously say, you know what, I think a bowl of ice cream is going to make me feel better right now. If we sit down, we mindfully eat it, we really are enjoying it, we're engaged with it, not numbing out with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we move on. And if we have other strategies, whether it be meditation, journaling, talking to somebody, whatever that might look like for them, I think that that could be okay. So I never want people to feel bad about that. But
Mm-hmm.
if and when it becomes a destructive coping mechanism, where it's really the one and only thing people think of when they're stressed or just emotional, then I think it's something that we can really look at together and say, okay, so, what is really bothering me? What is the core? What's at the core of it? And how can I maybe help myself with some kindness and self compassion rather than with food? Because I can always eat whatever I want to eat, but it's the why I'm eating it, right? So I really do try to gently engage my clients in this conversation to help them. Whatever their medical condition is or not, right? We never want to feel we have to eat a certain way, because then we're going to rebel against that way, especially in this time of uncertainty, right? I just, before we got on to talk today, I had an email from a client who just started working with me I have a body image healing program. And she's working one-on-one privately with me to help heal her body image after years of chronic dieting and hating on herself.
Mm-hmm.
We only had one session, and she's like, I just don't know. I don't feel ready in this moment to work on myself. I'm having a hard time to stay focused because of everything that's going on right now. What do you think? What are your thoughts? And you know what? I'm going to honor where she's at right now and find another way that maybe I can support her until she feels ready to do this type of work, because there are other ways. So I think that what's really important is, as certainly as a practitioner, to listen and to hear where my clients are at, and then really give the support that they need in that moment in time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really huge. And I mean, I've heard people talking too about how another coach that I follow, he was kind of like adjusting his shirt as he's getting in front of the camera, and he is like, "So I've discovered a very alarmingly natural ability to eat chocolate over this whole thing." But he mentioned that there's kind of this pressure to always appear a certain way, which a lot of people feel. Like you're talking about body image, a lot of people feel they just feel better if they look the way they feel like they should look or want to look.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And I guess I would say, even so, as a personal trainer, I feel that pressure normally, because people decide whether or not they feel like they could trust me based on how I look. So I do get that pressure. I understand it. But at the same time, I have always, not always, for a very long time, while I track what I eat, I'm not tracking it to match a rule. I'm
Mhm,
tracking what I eat because I know how I want to feel in my body. And
mhm.
that when I just throw out all the rules and I'm like, whatever, chocolate, ice cream, cookies, cake, whatever, is because those are my go-tos if I'm gonna emotionally eat. Um, but if I just throw out everything else and just go for that, I don't feel good. I
Mm,
feel the brain fog. I feel lethargic. It's so much easier for me to go to that depressed place.
mhm.
And I just can't handle the stresses
Right.
every
But you
day.
know what? I'm going to challenge you a little bit because I bet that if you stopped tracking and you found yourself going to the chocolate and whatever the foods you just said, and you didn't feel well, you would realize, I don't want to do that. I don't want to eat that way. You
Yeah.
don't, you know what I mean? So intuitively, you will know that. And you don't necessarily need the tracking to keep you on track. Because
Mhm.
if you're tuning in and you're mindful and you're aware, then you'll say to yourself, look, I know I can eat chocolate whenever I choose to, but when I eat it every single day, I don't really feel so good. And I don't really want to feel that way. So I'm not going to choose to eat it every single day. But
Mhm.
if I want to have a piece, I'll be able to have a piece. Because typically what happens is if somebody says I can't have chocolate, then when they have a piece, it's back to, oh, I can't believe I had a piece. You know, one more, and I promise I'm not going to have any again tomorrow. I'm not going to have any for 3 days. I won't have it again until next Monday. And now they're eating all of the chocolate, right? But if we
Uh-huh.
take that condition off of the chocolate and say, no, chocolate's fine. If I choose to have a piece of chocolate, then I can whenever I want to, you will find over time you actually aren't going to start just eating chocolate.
Yeah. And that's actually why I'm tracking it. It's backwards from why people normally track food, I guess.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, but it's the because at first when they said, okay, we're closing everything down for 2 weeks, I was like, whatever, we'll treat this like a staycation for two
Right.
weeks and then we'll go back to normal. And so I kind of it's like I forgot. It's like I forgot all those things I already know about food. I know that those foods don't make me feel good.
Right.
And in my normal routine, I don't crave them. I don't want them.
But
They're
things aren't normal.
I
Things
know,
aren't
I
normal now.
know.
That's right.
First couple weeks, I was just doing whatever I thought might sound good or feel good or whatever, and realizing I don't feel good.
There you
Why
go.
am I really feeling this not good? And
Mm,
not like in shaming myself kind of ways, but just like my digestion, feeling super bloated, feeling just
right.
tired all the time too. Just tired is
Yeah.
the simplest way to explain it. So then that's why I started tracking like, okay, what am I doing? Well, when I eat these foods,
So
I'm not
it's
feeling so good.
it's data. It's only for data purposes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Great. Yep.
Yeah.
That's how I like we're researchers. Sometimes we do have to log these things to gather the data that we need as long as we do it with curiosity and not judgment, right? So that's great.
Yes.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's something that I I I I've known for a long time which foods I feel good on and which foods I don't. But it's like all of that just went out the window
Yeah,
when all this started.
right. Right. And because you're human, we're all human. That's it.
Yeah.
100%. You know, it's trying. Look, you know, I think one of the most important things while we are in the house and we're self-isolating and not going to gyms and just our usual stuff, right? Is that we still have some sort of a structure. Whether you're working at home or you're not, or you're, you know, homeschooling your kids or not, having a structure is really important. And part of that structure is how am I nourishing my body throughout the course of the day?
Mhm.
Generally, most people do require 3 meals a day, at least to continue to infuse the energy into the body, right? So is there any structure? Now, as an intuitive eating counselor, I don't advocate eating by the clock. However, the truth is when we're under undue stress blunts those signals, hunger and fullness signals. So we can't really always rely on hunger signals to tell us when to start eating in these types of situations. So everybody is different. So I think it's really important to have some structure, but what I like to say is it's flexible structure. So
Mhm.
at least you know that you're consistently fueling your body and giving your body the nutrition that it needs. And figuring out, like, you know, okay, so I know I want to be physically active every day. How can I do that? You know, is that maybe a DVD that I haven't pulled out? Like this morning, I was doing a DVD in my den, and my husband, sitting at his office in the den, says, he turns around and he goes, this is an old DVD, like, right? Because I remember hearing this many years ago. I said, yeah, I dusted it off. It's a really old one that I used to do like a lot of years ago. But I said I need to mix it up. And so, yeah, I popped one of those in. You can go out for a walk. Maybe it just means jumping jacks or jumping rope or running up and down the stairs or whatever it is. Our bodies, as you know, more than anybody, because you preach this, right? Our bodies are made to move. We need to keep them moving. So you don't have to necessarily engage in a formal exercise program if that doesn't feel right for you. But somehow, where in the structure to your day are you going to work some kind of movement in? You know. By the way, that's another thing that, like, talk about working from home. And now that my husband's home, it's like really weird because now my appointments are like with clients are scattered throughout the course of the day now that no one's coming into the office, right? So I'm finding myself with some time either before or after lunch where I could say to my husband, let's go out for a walk. Who's ever done that in the middle of a work day? I've never done that in the middle of a work day. God knows he's never done that in the middle of a work day or probably ever. Um, and so now he's getting into this habit of walking, and it's awesome because he's like, are we going for a walk today?
Yeah.
Like, it's really great, Yeah. So there
Yeah.
could be some positives that come out of this, I think.
Oh, definitely. And I've even talked to people who, there was one lady I talked to, she's a IFBB pro bikini competitor. So just means that she has to be super on point all the time. And definitely the way that she eats and trains is very different than the way that you and I train
Mm-hmm.
people to do.
Mm-hmm.
But what she was saying is she was like, I would have never done at-home workouts ever. My just thought is like, oh, you can't get those results unless you go into the gym and you're lifting heavy weights and
Right.
all this stuff. And so she was pointing out, actually learning to work out from home, she's gotten great results, um, just from doing home workouts. And I kind of laughed because I didn't even think about, I started training people in their homes. So
Oh.
that's actually where a majority of my experience has come from. So it never occurred to me that people, I guess, viewed it as not getting good results that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we just talked about how funny it was because now her world is expanded. Now she has options no matter where she is or what she's doing.
That's
She's not
right.
limited anymore. So
Yeah.
that is a good thing that come out.
I think if people stop to just think about it and reflect, there likely, can be something positive that they can take away, maybe a new habit or mindset. I think so. I think it's important that we try to do that, actually, that we take this time. Listen, you watch the news at night and it's horrific to hear the numbers, right? Cases and deaths, and it breaks my heart, honestly. And I feel for all the people who've lost loved ones. Um, at the same time, I think it's important for us to just reflect on, what can I take away from this experience, and what change can I make in my life, for the better. I think is important. I'm trying to do that anyway.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely am too. And I think for me, it's opened up opportunities in the way that I coach people, because I do tend to be very, like, pretty much always positive, always motivational, always pick yourself up and go again. And so I've had to learn a little bit more, I guess, compassion or empathy,
Hmm.
not so much drive as
Right,
I'm coaching people.
right, right.
And I think this actually opens up a huge opportunity for people too, because I work with a lot of people who have been doing diet after diet after diet before they come to me. And by that point, when you do that, that's what causes all the stress around food, that there's just so much around it. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, was because you don't teach diets in the typical um, way that they're taught in the fitness industry, right?
Correct.
Um, so you mentioned a couple times intuitive eating. For people
Mhm.
who don't know what that means, what is that?
Mm.
Or
Right. So I don't believe in diets. Diets don't work. There's a lot of research and statistics to show that. And so intuitive eating is eating based on your physiological need to eat, based on hunger, based on fullness. What hunger tells you when to begin, fullness tells you when to stop. It's not based on situations you find yourself in. It's not based on emotions. And it's certainly not based off of rules, food rules, diets, plans that tell you what to eat, when to eat, and how much to eat, because that's all external from your body. And so just like yourself, I do work with people who are trying to recover from dieting and years of dieting. And I really think that, one thing common that I see amongst all the women and some men, by the way, it's not just women who are recovering from dieting, men as well. But one of the biggest things I see is that there's a loss of trust, right? A loss of body trust. And what I really help my clients to do through the intuitive eating process is come back to a place of what we call whole body trust, where they can trust their mind, meaning we break through any limiting blocks. So the belief that they can trust, hunger trust, where, oh, I have a signal. Is that a hunger signal? If it's a true biological hunger, then what do I need to do? I need to honor it and eat. If it's an emotional hunger, what do I need to do? Likely using some kindness, engage in some form of self-care. And then, of course, the final pillar of whole body trust, which is food trust. So that's you trusting yourself to make the food decisions for you. Each and every one of us have different unique nutrition needs, right? So I really feel strongly that no person, even myself as a registered dietitian, I can't tell you or anybody else what is right for you. It's what feels right for you in your body. You have unique needs. Now, it doesn't mean to say that people, don't need necessarily some nutritional guidance and education. That's okay, and that's important to be able to provide. But when somebody is coming off of dieting, like you and I have seen, right, when they're coming off of dieting, any nutrition guidelines that I would normally provide for them or conversations, they hear it as more rules. And then it's back to that conditions on my food, or, and so it's that vicious cycle. And so with intuitive eating, ultimately you're coming back to a place of whole body trust. And it's the way you were born. It's the way we were all born. And I think it's so important to get that trust back so you can have that pleasure in eating again, right? And
yeah.
it's so important because, listen, food is meant to bring us pleasure. I think in this country, we forget that. We forget that food is meant to be pleasurable. Like, it's okay to walk away from a meal and say, wow, that was really delicious, without having guilt, right? I mean, typically the dieter, if they love a meal so much, they often have that side dish of guilt associated with it, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want that. It's not a way to live. And I think now is a really great time for everybody to stop and reflect. Like, any of your listeners here and whoever's watching, right? If you've been a chronic dieter and you've been hopping from diet to diet, trying to just achieve this dream body that you want, number one, reflect on all of that. Reflect on how all your years of dieting have impacted you, whether it's physically, it's mentally, it's in your relationships, it's in your pocketbook, right? How has it affected you? And then really make the decision to say, you know what? There's so much more to life than worrying about food. And I want food to be a non-issue. And I feel strongly that every single person can achieve that. I know, once you start getting me into talking about this, I can just go on and on. I'm sorry, but I love this topic. I'm so passionate about it because it brings joy to myself, but it brings joy to people when they realize that, hey, it's okay to eat and it's okay to like what I'm eating. And guess what? I don't have to fret so much about my body. My body it's a miracle, right? And I always say your worth is not dictated by your size or a number on a scale. And you likely say that to people as well, I'm sure.
Yes, I do. And I love it. It's perfect. Everything that you're sharing. And I think it's perfect for people right now because I think the stress around trying to eat healthy in this time comes from the rules that they're trying to follow, and that guilt. I mean, we've already got enough worry and stress. Do we really want to add guilt on top of that? And then all of the one that I always lock in on is the good foods versus bad foods kind of mentality. That's why when I say eat healthier, I'm using air quotes,
Mm-hmm.
because when you label the foods like that, good or bad, then whichever one you consume, you tend to label yourself as,
Absolutely.
oh,
Good or
I was good today because I had this, or oh, I was bad today because I had that.
mm-hmm.
And those, it's not true. First of all, food is fuel. There are different types of fuel that your body will figure out how to use them. But the good versus bad thing, that's, I think, for me in the past, because I talked to you the first time, I think like 4 years ago or so.
Yeah, it was a while ago, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and the idea of intuitive eating really was kind of like like I'd heard about it, but not super familiar with it. I was being very strict with myself, what I was doing, and I was honestly getting comfort from the rigidity of
Mm-hmm.
what I was doing. It felt like something I could control. And at that point in my life, I was going through a lot that felt out of control. So in a way, it's, I don't think it's like a diagnosable eating disorder, but definitely disordered ways of eating.
Right.
And where was I going with that? Lost my train of thought. Um,
Your
oh,
original
the good
thought
versus
of
bad.
relating. Yeah.
Yeah, the good versus bad. And so that's how I was looking at my food, because I had every rule exactly in place, and I would be so good, we'll say, like all day, as long as someone else was with me and watching and judging what I'm eating, I'd be good. And then I swear, when I was by myself, I
Mm-hmm.
would eat an entire large pizza, the
Right.
whole thing. And that was my bad food
Right.
that I felt like I deserved on some level because I'd been so good for so long. But at the same time, no one could watch me eat that. I couldn't let
Right.
anybody know that
Right.
that's what I was doing. And it honestly was around the time that I talked to you, and we talked first, and then we had an interview, and then I had another phone call after you, or after the interview with you. And it was
Yes.
honestly that phone call where I realized, for I think the first time, that I have disordered ways of eating, and I'm just doing what I was taught to do as a professional in the
Right.
industry. It's what I'm
Yep.
taught to do. And that's kind of what opened it all up for me. So over the last 4-ish years, that's why I've started to think about and to learn, even to the point of like whole eggs versus egg whites. You could go into all these different schools of thought on which one is better for you and which one you should eat. But for me personally, when I eat whole eggs, I get really bloated, I break out, I don't feel good. I don't want to eat the next meal because my stomach is still upset from eating that. But if I eat only egg whites, I feel good. I feel energized, and I just move on and don't even think about it the rest of the day. And so, like you, oh, and I did get tested at one point, and the test did come back and show I am sensitive to egg yolks.
Oh, so you see, that was what I was going to say. So that's a very individual case where you identify not feeling well after eating a certain food. The test confirmed it, and you removed it from your diet, quote unquote, your eating plan.
Mhm.
But you didn't do that for the purpose of intentionally trying to lose weight. There's the big difference, right? And that is huge for people. And that's why when we started talking about, you asked me about people with medical conditions, right? People with diabetes, people with IBS, you can still be an intuitive eater and still be able to recognize certain foods that impact your, whether it's your belly or whether it's your blood sugars, a little bit differently, and then make certain decisions based on that. Again, we talk about it being data versus I'm eating this way because I need to lose weight, because hands down that will always backfire. And I think
Yeah.
that's where the big difference is here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have fear about that. Like, oh, I can't let go of my weight loss goal, though, which means I can't let go of the rules because they're afraid. You talked about body trust earlier.
Yeah.
They're afraid that if they let go of the rules, that they're not ever going to be able to have the kind of body that they want. Why does it work, though? It works. Why does it work?
Yeah, yeah. Part of that is the fact that dieting and restriction is what leads to the overeating. So restriction is the number one predictor for overeating or binge eating. So, at first, I have to say that's like one of the biggest fears, I guess, that, oh my God, if I don't diet anymore, I won't know how to eat, or I won't stop eating and I'll eat out of control. And
Mhm.
that's where I really share the whole idea about dieting is what triggers overeating. Once you can really reject the diet mentality and learn to start to trust again, bust through the limiting beliefs and the blocks that you have around this, then you'll see that you can learn to trust the signals. And it's a process. It's not, listen, dieting is like, it's a linear path, right? You start here, you end there with the goal of weight loss done, right? Whereas this journey back to having body trust and being an intuitive eater, it's a process, right? And there's going to be twists and turns, but every single twist and turn, it's not a failure. It's not a setback. It's not like, oh, I fell off the wagon, right? Diet talk. It's about learning, and it's a learning experience, and it's growth. And so, yes, you eventually do really get back to trust. And every single example that you can give yourself where you say, wow, I just accomplished X, Y, or Z. Like that's another thread on that, building of that trust, right? And then it builds and it builds and it builds. And yeah, you do get back there.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that when the weight loss that people are wanting, that happens so much smoother and easier and lasts when your body is fully functioning.
Mm.
So you're healthy, your gut is working, you don't have tons of inflammation going on. So your body knows what it needs. My body knew that egg whites are hard for me to process for whatever reason.
Egg yolks, you mean,
So,
right? Yeah,
or well, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yolks.
And I think it's important. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go. Finish
That's
your
okay.
thought. Finish your thought.
The point being that you can trust your body because it knows. It
Right.
knows what's
Yeah.
going to allow it to function at a really high level, which is what makes it not very hard for me to maintain a certain weight.
And that's what I was going to say is functionality and striving for a certain weight. Those are two different things, right? I think you're giving such amazing examples of the functionality of your body, and by listening, and it tells you, it gives you messages. It's just listening to it. But I do want to make it really clear for those who intuitive eating is new to, is that intuitive eating is not a weight loss program. And I think that's so important because there are
Yeah.
so many people out there that are promoting intuitive eating as a weight loss program, and it's not. And I think we have to be really, really clear on it, because then we're setting people up again, right? It's the
Mhm.
same thing. No, intuitive eating is about repairing your relationship with food and your body. Some people lose weight, sure. Some people don't, they maintain their weight. Perhaps some people gain weight. So if they come into the process with an eating disorder, for example, or below where their natural weight would be, they may have to regain weight to restore weight, right? So it
Mhm.
isn't about weight. And I think that's important. And the truth is that when I share that with my clients, it's a big relief. You mean, oh, okay. Listen, most women have been, working towards getting that certain weight for so long that I can never, and I would never say to somebody, you shouldn't want to lose weight. Like that's ridiculous, right? That's not respecting them or their desire. So I totally respect that wish and that desire. But what we say is like, let's just kind of put that on a shelf for a little bit. Let's just put it on the side. Let's respect the desire. Let's just not act on it right now. Let's really work on repairing the relationship with food in your body and allow your body to take its natural course, right? Nature has a certain, our body, it has a certain genetic blueprint, right, of where our size and weight would be.
Mhm.
Let it just take its natural course. And that's where people find the most, I guess, freedom, around that process, right? And the body lands where it lands. And sometimes, yeah, we have to do a little work around body image healing, like this other client I had mentioned earlier. And that's okay, right? Because we're bombarded with all these messages that, well, we're only worthy if we're a size 0, or, if we weigh a certain number. And that is in fact not true. So we do have to do a lot of the rewiring of the brain around that as well. So
Yeah.
listen, it's not easy work, but it's amazing, because you have so much in your life to live for, and worry about food and worry about body. hey, that just prevents you from living your life to the fullest, so.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're talking about are the underlying mindsets of why dieting can be so harmful, and why I've worked with people who they honestly give me a lot of pushback of, no, I'm keeping my rules. I like my rules. I'm keeping them. And I can coach using the rules. It's the way that I was taught. So I know how to do it, but it's more like manipulating to get
Mm,
your body to respond the way you think you want it to. But even with that, with those clients, they realize, because well, I have to tell them, you have hit your goal. The goal that you said you wanted to hit, where you thought you'd be happy, we've hit it. How do you feel? It's never enough that
right,
way. It's never
right.
enough.
And
They
it's typically
still,
not sustainable. The way they're eating and those strict rules, that's just not sustainable.
right. But if you flip it and you talk about, like we were saying, the functionality of your body, it works the way it was designed to work,
Right.
which means you feel good as you're going throughout your day. You've developed a healthy relationship with it, which means you love your body, however it happens to look now.
Right.
And so then when you look at a picture, like say you went out with friends, someone took a picture and you see yourself, there's not, and like you said, it's a journey, it's a process. You're not going to be perfect at this, but you're not as much, at least, looking at that picture going, oh man, I don't look great in that picture because this, that, and that. And then you start shaming yourself of, oh, I need to get better at this, better at that. I should have done more. That kind of conversation is largely taken out because you figured out how to love the person inside the body,
Hmm.
and that body goes with that person. So now when you look at that picture, you go, wow, that was fun.
Yeah.
I was
Right.
happy then.
It's about the event. It's about the people you're with. Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. It's a great conversation we're having. We could go on and on.
We could. We could. And I was trying to think, like, I don't want to coach people through this. At the same time, I do want to give people, if you're like, hey, I would like to feel better during this time, what's one thing, what's one way that they could honor their emotions and their body right now that helps them to feel a little bit better maybe than they're feeling right now?
I would say practicing self-compassion. Practicing self-compassion for where you are right now, the feelings that you have, and don't beat yourself up. This
Yeah.
too shall pass. I really feel so strongly about that. It's okay. And I do feel that if one really needs to chat about it, seek support somewhere,
Mhm.
because there's lots of people like you and I who really genuinely want to help people and support people through this, especially what we're going through right now.
Yeah. And even, well, for myself, I have a therapist that I talk to every week. That
Oh, that's
I've
great.
been seeing her for a long time and continued through this. She does virtual sessions with me. And that's honestly helped so much, because
Right.
it gets to me too, the not being able to just go outside or just run to the store and pick something up real quick, or
Yeah.
um all of those things. It gets to me too, and it
Right.
helps to have somebody to talk to where you're just safe.
Right. 100%. Look, like I started, it gets to me too. I have some support groups, business support groups, colleague support groups, and a lot of the conversations in those, weekly meetings that we have are all about, hey, how are we all coping?
Yeah.
What self-care practices do we need to put into place so we feel okay, so we can get through this, so we can be there for our clients as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
We practice what we preach. At least we try. It's not about perfection. It is not about perfection at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that was, I guess, one last piece. I just wanted people to know that even as the professionals, we're not trying to do this on our own either.
Right.
We haven't figured out some superhero thing that makes us perfect all the time.
Right.
We're
No.
just people, and we get help, we get support. We we don't always act the way that we wish we would either. But the forgiveness and the compassion part has, for me, has made everything so much easier rather than that strict, rigid counting every single thing that I'm doing.
Right. And I agree with you 100%. And I hope people can really take that message away from this conversation.
Yeah, I think they will. I think I think we probably communicated that well.
Pretty clearly.
Yeah, we said it a few times.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Bonnie, I so appreciate you doing this with me. Thank you very much. And thanks for being honest and letting me know when you were ready to do it too.
Yeah, my pleasure. I appreciate the conversation and us continuing to support each other, and anybody else that needs it through this time.
Yeah, absolutely. So one more time, your website, if people just really connected with the way that you were talking and would like to reach out to you,
Yep,
was
absolutely. The brghealth.com. That's
mhm,
where you can find most of the nutrition therapy. So if somebody does have diabetes or some gastro problems and they need support, that's where you're going to get the information. If anybody's really resonating with what we talked about in terms of intuitive eating and whole body trust, you can find all information on that at dietfreeradiantme.com. That's my website all about intuitive eating, and I've got articles and videos and so forth there, and some just free downloads. So there's a lot of free resources at that site, dietfreeradiantme.com.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's the website actually that I had found you on originally.
Yes, probably. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I have two parts of me, I have the nutrition therapy for medical conditions, but and I love that. And I do that from a weight neutral intuitive eating perspective, but then I do have that, intuitive eating. And so that's why you probably were like, BRG, what? Like, so yeah, it's dietfreeradiantme.com. Lots of good stuff there. So hopefully everybody will find that helpful.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, Bonnie. Everyone else, I hope that you are starting to feel the hope coming back too. Not necessarily even for a specific outcome, but just to know that no matter what happens, no matter what goes on, we're going to be okay. We're going to figure it out.
We will.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.